types of sports with shoot and tour. Football discussion on the internet.
This thing on? Jesus Christ, it's been a minute, huh? Yoink. And yoink. Is that better? It is both types of sports. I actually will be joined by Tor in just a little bit, even though it is a Thursday edition. It's the last time we spoke. Head on over here to X. All answers are found on X. If you would like to follow us on X, you would be more than welcome to do so. It is at both types sports. I don't think there was enough room character-wise for the actual name of the show. Look at that, we're live. Man, it has been a fortnight since we have been here. Since we have last spoke, Scott Hansen could be leaving Red Zone. I don't know what the fuck it's going to take. I would show up with all the I don't know if he's into high-price escorts, but lots of people are. I'd start there. Maybe bags of cocaine, the high-end liquor. I don't know what his fucking poison is. He might be a family man. I'll offer him a very posh SUV, hybrid even, to get his kids to and from school. Whatever it takes to keep that man on Red Zone. Horrific fucking Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady debates have taken place since we've been on the air. So the last time both types of sports was live was February 11th with Tor and myself. And there's been a variety of reasons why that is the case, but none of them matter right now. What matters now is that we are here now and enjoying each other's company. Sean Salisbury is scheduled to join me today on the program. Again, as I said before, Tor will be here. Both guys that I do enjoy, if we drop all kayfabe, speaking in matters of sport with. It will be the final episode today that is sponsored by Dream State Getaways. I'd like to give them a big verbal nod for sponsoring us for the entirety of the football season. It is drawn to a conclusion. Still plenty of time to get down there to Florida if you're going to the theme parks. Book their amazing houses. You can see them yourself. Check the link at the bottom right now, scrolling past the chat. DreamStateGetaways.us. There's also a link in the description of this video. Each of their houses is like a vacation itself. Got the arcade games, got the movie screening rooms, all kinds of bedrooms. They're on resorts. You can play tennis. There's pools. And then, of course, easy access to Universal, Disney, wherever you want to go and bleed money. Don't bleed money when you stay down there. Book directly at the website, DreamStateGetaways.us. Avoid the Verbo fees, the Airbnb fees. Don't fall through the deck. You ain't going to fall through the deck on one of these houses. And if you don't listen to the Chad Duke Show, then you don't know that I'm playing hurt right now, but I am playing hurt, and we are not going to let us stop that. If you would like to know why I am injured, you can go to youtube.com/Chad Duke Show. There is a video up there that says how that one time Chad Dukes almost died or something to that effect. But yeah, avoid all that and book Dream Stay Getaways. And thank you to them for sponsoring us the entire season. That is a fine product, and it was a very nice thing they did to make sure that I could pay for everybody to be on the show this year. People don't work for free, and they don't work for free for me if they can help it. So if you are in the chat, thank you. Make yourself heard with a super chat. We'll get your fucking thoughts up on screen for as little as $1.99. And if you're a cheapskate, skinflint, fucking tight with the cash, squeeze the quarter until the eagle shits type of cat, at least drop that like button. That's something free you can do to support the show. We do have a short amount of time to cover everything with you, and an enormous amount to cover in that short amount of time. A bunch of things that I have thoughts on, including one of the, I wouldn't call it the main story. This is the type of story that manifests itself when there's not games to be had. We're not yet at the draft. We're not even at the schedule release party. We're certainly not at the start of free agency or training camp. I mean, look, the NFL, she be generous and she be plentiful, and she gives us all the topicality in the world to discuss a plethora of piñatas with the entire season. But right now it's dry. Like, you've dried up all the Super Bowl discussion. We don't have the draft yet. It's still a ways off. So what to talk about? Well, who's attending the draft is always a big one. Who gonna show up? And one of the major pieces in this year's NFL draft has already decided to take their talents to either Colorado or Texas. we will give to that. Roland 499, thank you for the super chat. No types of Tor, both types of Dukes. Love it. Tor will be by later at the bottom of the hour. He has a day job, and of course, we frown on that sort of thing around here. But thank you for the super chat. Roland, I'll do you one better. Host of the Sean Salisbury show. This gentleman knows a thing or three about spinning it. And if you want to talk quarterbacks, I can't think of a better person to have on the program. Great to welcome him back on board. My friend and yours, Mr. Sean Salisbury at Unfiltered on X. Hello, Sean. Great to see you, buddy.
You too, buddy. How are you?
Been better. I'll send you a video as to why I'm all fucked up later, but we don't need to worry about it here. Okay, I was going to start with this, and this is silly because this is the type of story you and I discuss. Well, let me push that. You're in Houston. Let's start there, for God's sakes. Season ends. It was a weird regular season. We discussed it all year long, but Houston gets into the playoffs. They win a game. They look good in the second round. There's all the malarkey with the referees. So you're better off than I think you thought you were going to be midway point through the regular season. But now we're looking at what? Stephon Diggs is a free agent. I actually was just reading Ben Rolfe of Pro Football Network has predicted Chris Godwin is going to end up with the Texans. I think I saw a story today. They're still, talking about it down there in Tampa. But I would love it if you could just kind of wrap up what the season was, and then what are we looking at that needs to happen for Houston to take that next step? Because I thought they were going to take that next step this in 2024.
Yeah, I think a lot of us did, Chad. And, they're close, even though they were eliminated. You win 10 games during the season, and everybody wonders, well, man, 10 wins, you'll take it. When 2 years ago, they won 3 games. And improved 7 wins the next year, but took a step back. I feel like, and obviously we know they fired the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator, and they just didn't take care of their business. And they looked a little timid, they looked a little predictable, and they looked a little less aggressive than they did. It almost feels like with a 3-win team, you can just let it rip and nobody cares because you're on borrow. You're on, you're just trying to get it back into the swing, and anything's an upgrade. Well, when you get to 10 wins, expectations change around the league and in the building, and they didn't meet him this year. The quarterback took a step back, even though he's really good. The offensive coordinator coached it different, and the offensive line was atrocious. So you had to address it. The great thing about it, I don't like seeing anybody lose their jobs, but in this sport, people lose their jobs, and in sports, they all do. And at some point in time, and you go, rebuild yourself. But I don't like to let it fester either. You could have stayed around. They're my buddies. Let's try one more year. And then you put yourself as the head coach and the rest of the team at a disadvantage. So they took care of that. I don't know what Nick Caley's going to bring to the table. I don't. As a guy who's he's in that McVay tree and that Shanahan deal. So they're hoping more aggressive approach like Bobby Sloak had the first year. Their offensive line needs retooling. They make too many mistakes, and they're not very good. They're not nasty. They got their ass handed to them physically too much, and then couldn't block simple stuff. That's number one. If they don't fix that, it won't matter how good the perimeter is. 2, with Mixon and Stroud and Nico Collins, and I wouldn't count on Tank Dell. That was a gruesome injury. It's going to take a while. I was actually shocked that they took the salary cap hit and didn't go after Stephon Diggs. Now, what happens after that, who knows? But that's still they need to get better at the top there. Nico Collins is great, but they had it going with Dell and Diggs, and now you may not have either one of them here next season for different reasons. So, hell, I'd get into the Cooper Kupp fray. I'd get into I don't mind Godwin. I'd go out and try to find me. I would, whether it's a trade, you got assets, use some of them to get guys who get it. Cooper Kupp be a 100-catch guy here. And Deebo Samuel, if he's on the market situation, I'd go try to get somebody big, or T. Higgins, but I don't think Cincinnati's crazy enough to let him go. So that's where it's got to start. Defensively, I'm just telling you right now, Chad, this defense is a player or two or a handful of plays away from being as good a defense as there is in a league. They are charging and fast. Our secondary is young and fierce edge rushers. So they're not far apart or far away from being a back into it. And hell, they're a playoff team this year. So coaching, teaching that offense, but it all starts up front. If they're not physical, they won't have a chance. That's where it starts. But I would load up. I'm greedy as a motherfucker when it comes to scoring. I want to get more receivers, score more points. It'll make Nico Collins' job. And they've got to upgrade the tight end position. Dalton Schultz caught some balls, can't block you. And they got to get more physical there. So perimeter for sure, and I'm including the tight end. But defense is the staple of this team. Offensive line needs to be the staple. If they get to that point, they'll win a lot of division titles.
I don't want to dwell on it, Sal's, but Slowick, a season ago was one of the hottest head coaching candidates on the market. I know that C.J. Stroud getting hit too much was a big deal there, and he gets snapped up by Miami. He'll have a role there, but that soured so quickly. Lofty expectations can do that if they're not met. But was there anything specifically? Is it what you're talking about where they're looking at this offense, looking at the offensive line and saying, this is something the coach has to get out of players, and we're not seeing that right now? What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
And that's why, when the offensive line coach and the offensive line and the coordinator have to be on the same page, and they weren't for whatever reason. Now, I'm not saying they weren't friends, but do you understand who to get and how to get them? It's a pretty simple Denny Green phrase, God rest his soul. He'd always say, know who to get and how to get them, whether you're a lineman or a quarterback. If you know who to get, the conflict, the answer to the test is how to get them. Pretty easy. But they didn't have the conflict was there, and they didn't address it enough. And they don't have a guy that will pull your heart out and feed it to you on the field as an offensive lineman. They've got good players, but nasty and then technique in that order. I got to have somebody who's nasty and who at all costs you refuses you to be able to hit their player. That's how they play. And I can go through a litany of players who are like that. So the offensive line was a big problem. And then as a quarterback, when you're getting hit, no matter who you are, human nature is you get off progressions too soon, or your head goes to the pass rush. We saw it Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He was watching some of the pass rush, and he's been in the league doing a long time and been in big games. So one player said, and anonymous player said, that they had no identity. And I am so big on going in. If you don't have an identity 4 weeks into the season, if we don't know what your identity is, we got a problem. A year ago, it was explosive offense, fixing the defense, but man, C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. And Bobby Sloak was a hot commodity. Look how quickly it can change. Just like that in a year. You got, like I said, they didn't attack it. Maybe him subconsciously were saying, well, we don't have a good enough offensive line. But attacking doesn't always mean holding the ball longer. And I just think we got too basic at times. When you got to go, I love Ben Johnson's thinking. I do. He's an outside, but sometimes you can get a little too cute. But I'm aggressive. I don't think any lead's safe, and teams have proven that in this league. And you need to have a guy. I don't want to play it scared. I want to play it like I'm going to win it, not playing not to lose it. And they did too much of that. So, but their foundation is going to be defense, and I would expect the quarterback to take another step. But when you don't have identity and it's known in the building, you got to make changes. And if you don't know, I know who Kansas City's identity is. I know what it is. I know what Philly's identity is. I know what Baltimore's identity is. The Texans have had two different identities in 2 years with the same players. Not good. You got to find that identity and live with it, and then accentuate that and extend it, and then take those weaknesses and bring them closer to strengths. And they didn't do it. Even though they had 10 wins, it didn't look the same. The optics were different. That's why you fired guys, even though you're a playoff team and division winner back-to-back years.
It makes so much sense what you say about identity, Sal's. When San Francisco had none and they were kind of twisting in the wind, what do? They blow everybody out. They bring in a GM. They bring in a coach. They give them more years than anybody has, and people are scratching their heads like, wow, John Lynch, he's never done this before. They have an identity now. The Raiders aren't very good, but I know damn sure the Raiders are going to have an identity next year with the guys
did
that
this
went
year,
out.
though.
Yeah.
That's right, Chad. They did not, right? And look at the 49ers this year. You made the great point about Shanahan and Lynch, but look at their identity this year. We with Fred Warner and defense, but normally it's been you run the football, quarterback protects it, and we make enough plays, and we are loaded on defense to go do it. They did not have – you lose McCaffrey. Look how it changed their offensive attack. Even though they ran the ball pretty well, you lose bandwidth with his ability to catch it and mismatches out of the backfield. So it is a pretty common theme. And going back to the Super Bowl and looking at the not just the Super Bowl, but teams with an identity. Philadelphia's identity was Barkley. Philadelphia's identity is running the football. Philadelphia's identity was controlling it, making no mistakes, and get after defensively. They ran it, 44 or 45 times to the Chiefs' 11. They stuck to their identity. The Chiefs did not have one in the Super Bowl, which was odd. And the difference was a full-blown ass whooping by Philly. That just wasn't, well, you beat you, hopefully we'll be back at it. That was a loud message, sledgehammer to the head, kick to the balls. I mean, they dismantled. The only thing the Chiefs won in, even though he got a lot of touches, was not allowing Saquon Barkley to hit a home run. He had a bunch of singles. But then the other guys did it. You saw the tight end step up. You saw two wide receivers catch touchdown passes. You saw Jalen Hurts play like an MVP. And their defense, the MVP of the game was Vic Fangio. To be able to do what he did and take the identity away from them and not blitz was unbelievable. And those 2 Super Bowl losses, now you've seen the offensive line in Kansas City be pushed around. And it's the same here. You got to have identity. Teams that do will always be hanging around. When you lose it, it's easy to lose players as well.
It certainly is. I want to ask you another follow-up question about the Eagles because I agree with you there, and I think they're making everybody's lives harder at this point. But take a look at this. Bobby Double L, $50 super chat. Always delightful to see Shoot and Sal's talking both types of sports. Thank you so much, buddy. I completely agree with it, and I love talking football with Sal's. I'm so glad you enjoyed as well, and thank you for the super chat. David Flaccoberry, $10. Both types of sports with Sal's at lunchtime is the greatest. Double fat tax for the giant cheeseburger I am eating now. Thanks, most solid dudes. I get a lot of messages of people that like watching us, Sal's, while they're eating something disgusting. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Eat away and keep watching and listening. I'm grateful. Forever blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I agree with you. Jason, $5 super chat. 49ers fan here. Do we pay Purdy knowing he's probably going to cost more than is justified? Praying for your recovery, Dukes. It's not that dire, Jason. Thank you, though. I do appreciate it.
You're not dying, are you?
No, I'm going to tell you what I did. I went on vacation for President's Day, and the day I got to the rental property, I was walking up the stairs with my dog, and the fucking staircase completely fell out from underneath me. And actually, it was like you can see the bruising. I was like cliffhanger. I was holding on to the edge of the deck, screaming my fucking ass off, and I ended up falling about 2 stories. Fucked my leg up and this shoulder right here. And so,
do you own the Airbnb now? Being the fact that they screwed up now it's yours.
Sal, you wouldn't believe this. They offered me a Valentine's Day basket or dinner for 2 for my wife and I said, I think I'm going to go home and contact a lawyer. That's what I think I'm going to do. So I'm in that process right now.
Gracious, man, the danger that'll put a damper on your vacation and your weekend.
Hey,
man, I'm glad you're okay and not joking. That's some serious shit. It could have been a lot worse, but I'm glad you're hanging in there, brother. I had no idea.
No, it's cool. But it gives me perspective on, I've been in pain now for about 7 days, and the toll it takes on you mentally and then the people around you, like it's changed the way I feel about football. When guys are going through injuries, it's like that pain is just constantly there. You know what I'm talking about.
It never goes, brother. I got to tell you something. I hope it does for you. But after that pounding, injuries that I had when I was 30, it's like, is this ever going to go away? Then you just learn to, you have a high pain threshold and you just learn to deal with it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I want to get back to Jason's question about Brock Purdy, because I had one for you too. But Sal, let's go back to the Eagles. They paid their quarterback, right? And they paid their top 2 wide receivers, and then they went out and they paid Saquon Barkley. We're hearing endless bitching from Cincinnati, from all these different San Francisco. We can't pay all these wide receivers. How did the Eagles get it done? And then how much pressure does that put on? You better franchise T. Higgins and bring back Jamar Chase. Like, you better go out there and get a complimentary piece to Terry McLaurin. Like the rest of these franchises, this isn't F them picks. This isn't it's Pat Mahomes and a bunch of ne'er-do-wells and the cash changes. This is, we got elite guys and we're going to pay them like they're elite, and then we're going to go out and win the Super Bowl. I feel like the way the Eagles did it's going to shift the paradigm a little bit.
You could probably give Howie Roseman the executive of the year every year the way he's done this. I'm telling you, man, I don't get it. You build it. You got great players. Hell, I would have tried to keep Boyd there too when he was there. I mean, I went in Cincinnati. I never understood why, hey, we got a good thing going. We got all these weapons. Maybe the most valuable player on the team is that capologist who knows how to manipulate the salary cap to move it around. Kansas City's done. All the great teams do it. You've heard Joe Burrow. I'll move around my contract to free up something to do. That's the whole key to this thing. So when people say salary cap hell, yes, you put yourself there, but why? And I always want to know the reasons why. But Philadelphia, how can Philadelphia, Kansas City do it, but these other teams can't? Well, is the owner too cheap? You got to look at that. Does he not want to pay? Is there a ceiling on it? And where's his floor? And then, to me is what is it worth? And we'll get to Purdy. Sometimes you do have to overpay to keep your core. You just do. And that may be $1 million a year. I get it. Well, they got salary cap problems. I've never met a good team that couldn't manipulate the salary cap in their favor. I'm not saying illegally, but the way you move money, you ask your 5 best players. And when people think that, he's going to redo his contract, there's people out there that think, he took a pay cut. No. A lot of times they're getting more money up front, and you're just loading it wherever it loads. So you can do it. What Philadelphia decided to do was there is a premium on A.J. Brown, on Devontae Smith, on a good tight end, on a good running back, keeping our quarterback happy. They went out and took their core players and paid them. And it's amazing. And they're really good. And every damn one of them contributed hugely in the Super Bowl in the biggest moments of the world. So I don't know why we resist. Now, if some guy's just a turd and an asshole in the locker room, and eventually it's like, I've paid him enough. We got close. I'm done. I like the other. I get it. But, man, when you got guys that are in it and they've got buy-in and leadership, pay them. That's why you do it. And Philadelphia has decided, I mean, I know the Dodgers are a completely different thing because there's no salary cap with the luxury tax, but hell, what's their payroll? $400 million. But if they don't win the World Series, we're going to laugh again. I mean, they got better this offseason. So I'm all for it. And that's why I said earlier, I'm greedy. If I'm Cincinnati, there's no way T. Higgins gets out of that building. I will overpay him to keep him because it makes Joe Burrow better, and it makes Jamar Chase better. I add him, like I said, and you can go all you want, but when it gets right down to it, if you're not physical and you don't have game breakers in big moments, you're going to have a hard time winning. And both of those are you've got to maximize them both. So the way they do it, they took a smart business, their plan, and at times you realize we may have to pay a little overpay, but the ring's worth it. And any overpay they made this year, they're going to sit back and say it was worth it. Imagine going and getting Barkley, and he's underpaid compared to what he should after the impact he made. So they keep their impact players, and Howie Roseman did another great job, and they validated his trust in them. And Jalen Hurts has proven now 2 of the last 3 years that he played MVP-type football in the biggest games in front of him, and he's done that since he's been in the league.
To say thank you to Spider Clam for the $5 super chat. There's just something that feels right when curse words are used to discuss the NFL. I tend to agree. I think it's just guys talking like guys, Clam, but I've always enjoyed that part of it as well. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's go back to this question about Brock Purdy from Jason, and it's one that's been discussed quite a bit this week and will continue to get discussed. We learned that the cap is going up $277.5 million to $281.5 million. Apparently, some people are crediting Taylor Swift with this, which can't imagine. But that is quite a chunk of money. You had Micah Parsons tweeting about it. Some of these guys that are expecting to get a payday cap increase will be increased by more than $53 million over the past 2 years. Clearly, this is the most popular sport in Los Estados Unidos, and it continues to grow. Here's what I can't get away from, Sal's, is that Brock Purdy, I think, is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, right? But is Brock Purdy a quarterback that you think you can devote $45 million to and then still address all the concerns you have on a team? Could you give Sam Darnold 2 years and whatever Baker Mayfield deal that he would want? Could you give Aaron Rodgers league minimum and say, come in here? I guess what I'm asking is, Brock Purdy is a fine quarterback, but I just don't think that paying him what it's going to take to keep him because of what Trevor Lawrence got, because of what Daniel Jones got, makes a lot of sense. And we've seen Kyle Shanahan have a positive effect on virtually every quarterback that he's ever coached of merits. It's a very difficult conversation to have. Which way are you leaning right now?
It's easier for me, Chad. Let me go 2 ways. First, I go with this. Okay. And this is a question I ask, not even just in the Brock Purdy, when Dallas was always complaining about Prescott and he finished second in the MVP last year. All right, if you want to get rid of a guy, what are you going to replace him with?
Right.
That's what I got to ask. Sam Darnold, we talk about the San Francisco, and I know Shanahan's loved Darnold for a while. He goes and puts up a great season the last 2 games. We wouldn't be having the conversation because they'd have franchised him if he'd have played great the last 2 games. He just, unfortunately, in 2 pressure games, he didn't. So with that in mind, 6 months before that, not a soul in the world was willing to give Darnold a chance. Minnesota did, and Darnold proved it with some MVP votes, and now is going to put himself in a position to go play. But okay, so who am I replacing him with if I get rid of that guy? That's number 1. 2 is Sam Darnold, is Russell Wilson, is Aaron Rodgers. As we speak now, the last couple of years, have any of those guys played better than Brock Purdy? And my answer is an absolutely no. They haven't. Okay. Now, here's what we don't like about Brock Purdy. The stigma that he was the last player picked in the NFL draft, 7th rounder, tells you that you say they picked him there for a reason. The guy can't play. Well, sometimes these so-called experts that draft and scout people are horseshit at their job. I've witnessed it. Trust me. I'm not saying all of them, but there's some, just like in any job, somebody got a buddy, you got a buddy got in, and I got news for you. They're stealing money in their office because they couldn't scout their way out of a wet paper bag if their asshole was sitting on top of their head. Okay. Whatever that means. But there's some good ones. So how do we know that Brock Purdy shouldn't have been drafted in the third round? Why? Because he's not 6'5" and 230, because he doesn't have a rocket launcher arm. He doesn't, all those measurables that are so fucking overrated at that position. Okay. Jalen Hurts, man, well, he's not a great thrower. Alabama, Oklahoma, he's good. Yeah, he's not a great thrower. Oh, yeah. Well, aside from one fumble 2 Super Bowls ago, or what is it, 3 now, Jalen Hurts is the MVP in both games. Okay. So 6'5" throwers and guys who can rip it 100 miles an hour, that's great. Do you win? Now, the question is, can he make the throw in certain points of duress? Here's what I think about Brock Purdy. Do I think Brock Purdy is the type of guy who could go to a team that has no good players and elevate them to a Super Bowl? That answer is no. Those guys, the Mahomeses and Burrows, to take an organization that needs them and to elevate everybody around him, that's a different cat, okay? Yeah. There's only a couple of them. We can't compare everybody to Mahomes and Josh Allen because they don't exist very often. So Purdy, with this stigma that follows around, we're looking to replace him, always looking to replace him. I want you to do me a favor. And I know this year was an outlier because of the injuries, and it proves my point. He's not going to go carry a team when you got this receiver hurt, Jenny, this guy hurt, McCaffrey out, defense hurt, defense not playing well. That's not him. But you give him good players, which is the object. Put good players around people. Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson, they get better. You give Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they get better. So that is the object, to give them good players. And when they don't have good players, we're mad that they don't win. But when they do have good players, we punish the quarterback. Oh, if he didn't have McCaffrey, he wouldn't be good. Well, no shit. If Brady didn't have Moss, he wouldn't be any better either, or Gronkowski. Okay, he'd be good, but he's not going to be as good. The numbers aren't going to be as good. So I look deeper into this position. The San Francisco 49ers, now, while they won a Super Bowl, but I can question Kyle Shanahan's play calling in it. I can question some defensive plays, a drop in a Super Bowl that you left on the ground, all that. Is he worth $55 million? Probably not. Right. Is Tua worth 53 or whatever he's making? Probably not. But in order to keep a guy that you don't know who you're going to replace him with, you better have it. I'm not sure that 1 year with Aaron Rodgers, as much as I love him, and I hold him in the highest regard, he's a more talented player. I'm not sure the 49ers are any better with Aaron Rodgers at 41 than they are with Brock Purdy. I would not do it. I wouldn't. So, and the Raiders, now you can get him there. Great. They need an upgrade. Purdy's not Aiden O'Connell right now. So because he doesn't look the part, he was drafted where he was drafted, the stigma is not going to go away until he's the MVP of the league and wins the Super Bowl. Well, can't I say, has Lamar won a Super Bowl? Has Josh Allen won a Super Bowl? Now, they're enormously talented, but my point is, at the end of the day, they're watching the same game Brock Purdy was watching, right? Right. On TV, even though they're more gifted and can carry a team more with lesser guys, and Allen proved it this year. But why are we trying to replace him? So I want you, if anybody out there wants to, go look at the numbers since Brock Purdy's been his starter. And I'll give this year the outlier, not as good, but since he was a starter with good players, he's been to a Super Bowl, went to another NFC championship game and was hurt in it, so he couldn't play, so he had to play a fourth-string quarterback. And so he did that. He's been there. His numbers were his accuracy, what was wrong with his number? Because he didn't throw for 5,000 yards? That's okay. So I'm not saying he's a superstar. Brock Purdy's better than we give him credit for, and he's not worth $55 million unless he can negotiate it. So would I pay him $45 million for 3 years or something? I absolutely would. That's the $30 million is a drop in the bucket now, the way we're paying starting quarterbacks in the league. It's true. If you're $30 million, you're just a guy. If you're $40 million, you're creeping into some good. But it's the $50 million threshold we're at now. Right. So what are you going to replace him with? Aaron, okay, so Rodgers is good. I don't think the 49ers are the favorite with Rodgers, judging from what I saw, the injury and this last year's play, even though I think he could probably elevate. I don't think the Rodgers we saw last year is the Rodgers you'll see. But is Rodgers taking the Raiders to a Super Bowl if he goes to that team that needs to fix their roster the first year? I can absolutely tell you, no, he's not. So I can go through them. I don't want Russell Wilson more than I want Purdy. Not even close. Sam Darnold, who I love, he's my SC guy, and I think he's a starter in the league. I'm not sure he's not going to I'm not sure he's going to make more plays. He's got better arm talent, but is he a better player when the ball snapped than Brock Purdy is? I don't understand the disdain for Purdy. I just don't. Do I think he should be a 55 million? No. Do I think, hell, 90% of the guys that are making that, you're like, damn. But it's sport. Is Soto worth $750 million? Maybe. His talent's enormous, but $750 million, that better come with a championship after championship. But it's a team sport, so one guy, he could go hit 400. They may not make the playoffs if your pitching sucks. So my point is, we overpay a lot of them, but it's not my money, and I ain't paying it. Maybe when I go buy a ticket, they're charging extra, but we love our stars. But Brock Purdy, the whole reason we don't love Brock Purdy, he doesn't look the explosive, strong arm part and where he was drafted. If I'll tell you now, take Brock Purdy and make him a drafted where mid-first round, where Kenny Pickett was drafted, and give me Brock Purdy's numbers in San Francisco and his wins. What are we saying about Brock Purdy now?
Yeah.
You're saying pay him. That's exactly what we're saying. But, and it's banner. There's some that can't stand him. At $45 million, are you like, damn, we're invested? If you're saying $45 million a year for 7 years, the answer for me is no.
Right.
But if he can give, what am I losing by going 3 years at $130 million or whatever it is for Brock Purdy?
I guess the question,
give him a big signing bonus or some guaranteed money. Can you do better on the free agent market right now than Brock Purdy? That's all I'll ask. And if you can't, then this conversation's over. You got to pay him.
I understand everything you're saying, Sal's. I don't want to keep you too long, but here's the one counterpoint I would make. If Sam Darnold went out there in the last couple of games of the season, the postseason, and killed it, you and I aren't having a conversation about whether or not he's going to get franchised.
Bingo.
There was a moment in that season where Brock Purdy, they were without Christian McCaffrey, they're without Brandon Ayuk, and they're statistically still alive. And everybody was saying, go out there and prove to everyone you're a quarterback in this league that can make your team better, can take the bull by the horns. And he objectively did not do that.
No doubt.
And I think that's the part where it's like you had your control. This isn't some amorphous being that just decides which quarterbacks get this money. You were given a unique opportunity to prove in this moment that you deserve the benefit of the doubt. And that didn't happen. And I think that's a fair argument to people that are Brock Purdy detractors.
Oh, there's no question. And people that are going to – Sam Darnold. I'm a big Sam. Darnold's got great arm. They're going to argue, well, Sean, in the biggest moments, this year in those two big games against Detroit and in the playoffs, Sam did not play well. And it's great banter. And I'm not mad at anybody who thinks you shouldn't play Brock Purdy. But the grass – sometimes when you water other person's grass, it's not. Yeah. It doesn't quite get. You know what I'm saying? I love the banter. 49ers are going to end up making the decision. You got to say, what's the replacement? Is he going to do it? And the truth is, like I believe, if they're injured, Brock Purdy's not carrying you to 12 wins on a team with no weapons. That's just not his game. But working in structure, which is the case for a lot of quarterbacks, he can win for you. His numbers say so. But you're right. There's some similarities, and it is. Am I 100% sold on Purdy? Absolutely not. Meaning sold that he's going to go win a Super Bowl and be in 8 Pro Bowls and do that? No. Am I convinced that he's about as good as they've had in a minute, and he's a really smart guy, and that if he was a second-round or first-round pick, the conversation and narrative, even with some of the struggles, would be much different? The answer is absolutely. Optics tell you, can't pay the guy. Look where he was drafted. This is bearing itself out.
Sure.
But when he was kicking ass, we were still, but what's the deal? The guy's 7th round pick. How good can he be? Even when he was playing MVP type football in these first couple of years, that's what they're going to be faced with. I think it's great banter. And I don't think anybody's wrong for saying, no, I wouldn't pay him. But I think for anybody to say unequivocally, Brock Purdy's not a starting quarterback in the National Football League that can get you places. I do believe, by my knowledge, that guy was sitting in a Super Bowl with a chance to win it 2 years ago. So he is pretty good for a guy who's still in the infancy of his career. But you are taking a risk if you're pushing that $50 million a year range. You are 100% correct.
Miss talking with yourselves. Thank you so much for taking the time today, brother. Great to see you.
Can't wait, brother. Thank you always.
See you soon. There's the great Sean Salisbury. Pleased to be giving him a follow on X. It is at Sean Unfiltered. And look at this. The Sean and Sean Football Factory is in the building. There he is. Scott himself wouldn't call his mom about NFL bullying. Oh, the Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito, Mike Florio beef is growing hair. Let me thank Bobby Double L before we do anything. He dropped 10 Chad Dukes Show gifted memberships during that. Thank you so much, Bobby Double L. the YouTube station has been limping around like myself. So that is very, very kind. And a $50 super chat. This man fucking shows unparalleled sport. Make sure you have accept gifted memberships turned on. Click the link at the top of the chat if you do not. Thank you, Bobby. And good to see you, young Gigantor. How are you?
Doing good. Hopefully you're as excited about the hockey tonight as I am.
I didn't even know it was on. I booted up my my algorithm doesn't tell me shit about hockey. So I think it was Eisen. Somebody was tweeting about the game. Then I was Clay Travis. He's like, all I care about is the hockey game. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Well, so it's not New Year's, so it can't be one of those outdoor. I didn't even know what the fuck they were talking about. So we're playing the Canucks. Is that what it is?
Yeah, playing the Canadians in a rematch, and it was the first game. It was fun. It was fun because there were 3 fights in 9 seconds. And
I heard it was testy because they don't want to become the 51st state, and they clearly are going to become the 51st state.
You boo the anthem in front of in front of a bunch of hockey players. What do you think is going to happen? And all the non-sports people trying to get into sports.
Oh,
and
it's embarrassing.
The fighting and hockey. It's like the truly last gladiator sport outside of actual combat sports that we have. Don't touch it. It's perfect. The fighting in this sport is awesome.
It is always embarrassing when like political people try to come swinging in on a chandelier and talk about a story that's going on in sports that could potentially be a crossover. And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
They don't speak for funny. They don't speak for sports. They speak for the boring stuff. And I would prefer if they stayed over there in that lane.
Stick to the boring stuff. That's something I've always said. Well, this isn't boring stuff, Tor. I save all the salacious topics for you. Big news in the world of the NFL. Not only did Lamar Jackson change his hair. I don't know if you've seen that Bones movie, Tor. It's getting a lot of run. Maybe one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, where Snoop Dogg plays some sort of vampire hunter, I think, from back in the 90s. Artful. And then you've got Patrick Mahomes changing his haircut too. And this is what I would say to you, young man. I blame your generation because all of you are kind of metrosexual and you care about what players, their fit and their kicks and their bullshit. But we are too close to the end of the Super Bowl and the draft being on the horizon to be on quarterbacks changing their hairstyles right now.
It's a little too much. And my biggest issue is seeing that big dummy in the back of the photo with the permanent dumb face. It's awful. He's awful. He should just not be seen with his heroic older brother, Patrick Mahomes. You just can't do that.
The one thing I do like about seeing Patrick Mahomes cutting, and I'm commenting on it like a hypocrite that I am, is that every time I go to a shopping mall, every time I cruise past the middle school, as you know I like to do, every fucking male child, all of them have the Patrick Mahomes haircut with the big bouffant that he was wearing. So maybe if he's cutting it, I assume he's the Pied Piper and he's leading them all out. Maybe everyone changes their haircut from having that same ridiculous do.
It's interesting. He kind of brought it in, and everyone wants to talk about the impact of NBA players and how they're style icons and fashion gods and all that. No. Everybody, every middle schooler and high schooler wants to look like the best quarterback in the NFL. We saw it with Tom Brady when he had his longer hair. Everyone wanted the longer hair. When he trimmed it, everyone trimmed it. Now you got Mahomes with the cauliflower hair. Yeah, everyone starts pulling that off. You know why? Because he wins Super Bowls in his second year in the NFL. And it's just it's a different level of icon and status. And if it does mean that some of these children are cleaning it up and taking the hair out of their eyes, I'm all for it.
There's a lot I want to talk to you about today, or with you about. This is an interesting story because whenever there's a topic that I feel two different ways about and they kind of contrast each other, I always know it's going to be good for discussion. But Shedeur Sanders is not going to go to the draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin for 2025. He said, quote, "We'll most likely do it in Colorado or Dallas. We haven't fully decided yet. We plan on doing like an event thing where it can be fun." If he's doing an event, I wonder, Tor, if that means there'll be tickets. You can, be maybe at a club or you can pay and get in, and it's a money-making opportunity. I never fault anybody for that. And he's a Sanders, so they're very good at making it about themselves. I actually don't mind when players don't want to get on a plane and be free advertising for the National Football League. I don't think they get paid a cash sum to do this. I think the travel and accommodations, and there's certainly perks, but if you want to do that for yourself instead of the league, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. it's Lambeau and it's
Yeah.
the draft, and there's a chance you go 1 overall, and there's a part of me that says maybe we pay it forward a little bit, especially Tor. He's the first generation or one of the first. He's been making money, and he's been making a lot of money, and there's something about it for whatever reason, because it's Green Bay and we've never seen anything like this, and it's so just sopped up in football nostalgia, that I think if you have a chance to be at that draft, especially if you're him and you can be there with your dad and your brother and have that whole scene, there's a lot to that. What do you think of that decision?
Well, I love seeing big, massive football dads on draft night hugging their kids in the living room, where they're just obviously a tank, and it makes sense. I love seeing the big fat football dads, and you don't see that at the draft. But also, Shedeur Sanders is one of the players that has so much celebrity before being drafted that I don't think he needs the additional exposure of showing up to the draft in a $15,000 suit that with the chains and the jewelry and everything that's going on and the loafers and no socks. Like, I don't think he needs that. He's got a built-in fan base. He's got built-in loyalties. And like you said, he has been getting paid a good amount of money. So if it's just seems like a hassle to him, yeah, it really genuinely might not be worth it to him to go and give that exposure to the NFL. But conversely, I'm shocked that he's staying away, given the legend status of Deion Sanders Sr. and his draft execution and all of his activities during that draft, when he was sitting in the audience with, it looked like 10 pounds of jewelry on his neck, and he was walking out of interviews, and he ran in a sweatsuit and left. Like, I see.
Oh man, it is always something with this young man's connection. I'm sure we'll get young Gigantor back on. Come on back in whenever you're ready, young man. We'd be more than willing to have you. I don't want to get too dramatic with the Shedeur thing, because he can do whatever he likes. And there's a part of me now that does what I do for a living that likes the notion of somebody that has talent and ability and some credibility to say, F you, I'm going to go make my own money. First of all, I don't believe in the NFL draft. I think you guys all know that. I think these guys should be able to just go and apply for a job the way we all would at the Super Bowl. But I understand what Tor's saying as well, not to get overly dramatic, Tor, but here's the one part of it that if I'm in the NFL and I'm thinking about drafting Shedeur Sanders, and you're going to have to overdraft him. I think we all know that. He's not, a lot of people are saying none of these quarterbacks are, top 10 picks, and they have 3 of them might go in the top 10. Here's the one problem that I have is I'm worried about that Sanders albatross. I'm worried about the fact that you've already had his dad going on and saying, we know where he's going. We're not going to let him go here. If you want me, you're going to have to coach both of my sons. This is a pain in the ass. There's a lot of good stuff that comes along with it. But the decision to, I'm not taking a part in the draft. A lot of other players have made that. But for me, it hits a little different because you know what's going to come along with having him be the guy that you invest being your franchise quarterback in.
There could be a lot of ugliness there, where if it's Shedeur Sanders standing on the stage pouting about who drafts him, or you pan to the camera or pan to the stands and you see Deion Sanders visibly upset about the draft pick, it would be fantastic content. Like, I'd be all over it. But for the NFL, that'd be a bad look if one of the best players of all time and a future top 5 pick are both completely poo-pooing one of your 32 institutions. It's a bad look no matter what, saying that, oh, this team and this franchise has such little momentum that former legend, rising star don't want to be a part of it in any way. That doesn't look good for the brand.
It doesn't. I mean, if it's the Raiders and it's Pete Carroll, I think you got to start looking at, it's not going to be a good team that's drafting him. I know, the cleats with, what if it's the Jets? What if it's not the Giants? It could be any one of these combinations. I did want to look at this a little bit because they put up some renderings of the way that the draft setup is going to look. I don't know if you've been to Green Bay, Tor, and I've been to Green Bay. I don't know how they put football games on, much less the draft. They've put up some renderings here of what it's going to be like. This is a larger picture of the area, and this looks great. It doesn't do justice, Tor, of you're in a fucking neighborhood. There's houses. You could see people's homes, into their homes from the stadium. How are they going to get that massive setup in there when it's, maybe if they were going to put it inside of Lambeau, that would be the case, but that's not what they're going to do. They're going to set it up outside like they did Nashville and all these other places. I think it's going to be amazing for TV. I have no idea how they're going to execute this.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant spot to go and hold the NFL draft because the Titletown area is stellar. And then, yeah, there's lots and everybody that's living right around the stadium is going to make a bunch of money with Airbnbs. And I think Packers fans are going to go out and they host a really good party also. It's brilliant by the NFL to put the draft in more localized places.
How are they going to do it? How are they going to fucking move that many people in and out? There's going to be 100,000 people there.
Oh, no, that traffic line gets a bit long out there. It's going to be interesting, but there's a lot of lots surrounding, a lot of parking lot space surrounding Green Bay. The tailgate is more substantial than I expected it to be, but it is shocking that you were driving through a really run-of-the-mill Midwest town, and then you cross the street and here's Lambeau Field with one of the most historic and legendary NFL franchises where they continue to play. They should never move it, never put a dome on that field, leave it as is. It's one of the things I do. The only things I appreciate about European soccer is a lot of these stadiums are built right into the neighborhoods like Lambeau is, where there's a lot of ties, a lot of local ties, and that gets fans ingratiated from a very young age. And it's very similar in Wisconsin.
There's this ship called the Endurance that sank in Antarctica, and because it's so fucking cold, you can go down there. This was in the early 1900s. They've actually they found it again, and they sent submarines down, and everything is almost exactly the same. Like you could still see the paint on the back of the boat, and they now preserve it. They're like, we're never going to go down and fuck with it. We're never going to touch with it. And I completely agree with you. If anything ever happens to the NFL or anything ever happens to the Packers, whatever, it's like you must. We use this term too often on the internet, but Lambeau must be protected. Like Lambeau has to stay where it is, how it is, as just a marvel of American culture, pop culture, sports culture, whatever you want to call it. So I'm with you. I mean, that you could pick no better place to do all of this. And I hope there's 12 inches of snow on the ground as everybody's walking around and enjoying it. It's going to be fantastic.
Detroit knocked it out of the park last year by also getting everyone fired up, finding a perfect spot. And also Detroit fans they're riding high. They had some momentum this year. Flooded streets, frozen streets. We missed a bullet.
Oh my God.
Here.
I mean, saw that.
A shocking the most shocking weather development I've seen. Virginia Beach getting a foot of snow. I don't care. Detroit is an ice skating rink right now. It's unbelievable.
Has anybody seen those pictures? Like there was so much water on the ground. First of all, how did that happen so quickly? Like a lake takes a long time to freeze over, and it's like a small pond out there on the streets of Detroit, right? Like I don't know how. Well, I mean it's not going to be above freezing up there for a long time.
It is. I'm seeing photos of cars frozen up to their windows.
This is unbelievable. Can you imagine if Wesley the Barber zombie Camaro was stuck? I mean, we wouldn't even see the top of the antenna for the Sirius XM. Look at this shit.
I hope that thing got destroyed this winter. Just salt and rusting and everything. Go get it wrapped again, dummy.
He's not a smart kid. All right, so I made a list. All right, we're gonna play a quiz with Tor here. I've got 4 teams. I want you to solve those teams' quarterbacking problems with, if you were general manager, Radio's Gigantor, how you would handle it. Okay.
Okay.
And you can pick rumored quarterbacks. You can go in the draft. You can guys that we think could be traded. There's a lot of fucking rumor and innuendo out there, including if somebody wants to bring in Matt Stafford's sweaty wife. Let's start there. The New York, New Jersey football Jets. They have no interest in Aaron Rodgers. What is it? Tyrod Taylor, who's under contract there. They got a backup quarterback. I forget.
They got Jordan Travis. They drafted him a couple years ago.
Who would be the starting quarterback? Who would Radio's Gigantor target?
Radio's Gigantor would target old veteran Kirk Cousins or old veteran Russell Wilson. I am seeing the speculation of Justin Fields going to New York, and he's got a bit of a raw deal so far. I don't want to see New York absolutely end his career. Let Kirk go there, make a bunch of money, look good for a month, and then peter out, or let Russell Wilson go there and just end his career in kind of obscurity. I don't think the Jets have enough real momentum hiring a defensive head coach. It's not the year for them. There's too much. This last year was so crazy with the firings, the replacements, the Aaron Rodgers drama, that you're not a year away from sanity. It's not just going to click this offseason this year, no matter the talent that they have on defense and some of the good offensive pieces that they have. So just bite the bullet and just take a vet, 1-year deal. Maybe you give him 2-year deal with the opt out. And Cousins will be fine. He'll get them as many wins as Aaron Rodgers got them, I believe. So it's another year for mediocrity down the pike. I don't think drafting a quarterback helps them either.
You want to know which general manager Shu would do?
Oh, what would Shu do?
I call Los Angeles, and I do everything I can to get Matt Stafford. And I know he's 37 years old, and I know he's been sacked over 500 times, and I know it's been 14 years without the playoffs, but this is still a stacked Jets team. Stafford is a fucking baller, and you're going to need to reinforce that offensive line no matter who comes in there, because that was the main reason why Rodgers struggled last year, in my opinion, despite the injury and anything else. I think Stafford to the Jets makes a whole lot of sense. He feels disrespected. He wants a big pile of money, and I think he's got a lot of ball left. I can't imagine why Sean McVay is even entertaining this, but there's a lot of smoke surrounding that. So that would be at least what I would attempt. Let's move on. Made the playoffs, but underwhelmingly so. The Pittsburgh Steelers. How is general manager Tor attacking the quarterback position?
Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they should bring in J.J. McCarthy. And I think you trade for the young quarterback.
Didn't expect that.
you draft another wideout, and then you let Arthur Smith get his mobile, strong quarterback that he wants to run a lot of play action with, throw it down the field to George Pickens, get the weirdo out, get the young potential Justin Fields out, let him go to somewhere that actually has offensive pieces around him. You got to make a move for a young guy and try to hit the reset button. I don't think that there's a draftable quarterback that fixes all of Pittsburgh's needs. Make a play for McCarthy.
21st overall pick and what? Like I'm just assuming that that's off the table, that they wouldn't even attempt to trade or even listen. Do you think they're picking up the phone for calls on JJ McCarthy at this point in Minnesota?
I think they should be. I definitely think they need to be because it is a bad quarterback class. And I think the Vikings could come out as big winners, keeping Darnold and ditching McCarthy, getting a bunch of draft capital, and say Darnold has a year where he regresses, right? And he's not really doing what he did this year. Then you still have the capital, Jesus Christ, capital.
Hashtag capital.
To be able to draft another guy in the upcoming class the year following. But additionally, I don't think McCarthy is a guy that ever has a season throwing better than what Darnold had, where he had 4,300 yards, 30-plus touchdowns. I don't think he ever does that in the NFL.
Well, it's weird that you said that, because my solution was from the same team, but my solution was Daniel Jones, where Daniel Jones becomes the court. You don't think Daniel Jones is big? He's physical. He can run the football. You don't think there in Pittsburgh he would have a better shot? What's he going to do? And then if for your plan, I let Sam fucking Darnold go, and Daniel Jones is starting quarterback for the fucking Minnesota Vikings.
Daniel Jones he's the worst quarterback I've ever seen.
Not up there, not with KOC, dog.
Oh,
no fucking way. Yeah, I go after Daniel Jones if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't think they're getting rid of McCarthy. I think they love him. I think that's why they're not even going to bother franchising Darnold. Pat McAteer, $4.99. Thank you so much for the super chat. When are we getting the Tour Mock Draft 1.0? We got to have that tour. When are you going to have it assembled? When's your war room going to be finished?
I can make a mock this offseason. I'm about to finish my top 30 quarterbacks all time per request. So, yeah, that has been actually way more gruesome of a project, taking on where to put Dan Fouts, comparing him to Josh Allen. Like, how do I disrespect the beard? I can't do that.
Oh, boy, considering you never saw him play one down in your fucking life, too, that probably could make it interesting. All right, so we've done the Steelers and the Jets, two-tone blue, number one on the field, number one in your hearts. My Tennessee Titans, how are you addressing their quarterback situation? Of course, keeping in mind they have the number one overall pick.
Easiest team to fix for me this offseason. Sign Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I love it.
Draft Cam Ward. Two quarterbacks.
I don't love it. I don't love it.
Cam Ward is a gunslinger. He puts the ball in harm's way a little bit, but he has He's got the best arm in this class, and he has the mentality. He's got a fantastic NFL mentality. He's the nonchalant stuff that he was doing in Miami this year. I don't think he does that in the NFL. I think he comes in laser focused, true professional, and he can learn from Aaron Rodgers of actually, I think, how to be a quarterback with a golden arm. All the other stuff, don't even hang out with him. Don't talk to him outside the meeting rooms, but
he's loved in the locker room, dude. That's a narrative the media ran with because the media doesn't like Aaron Rodgers, but all those guys inside the locker room like Aaron Rodgers.
I guess so. I will believe that they like Aaron Rodgers. I haven't heard, oh, I hate this guy. This guy stinks. But he just is too much. It's too much from him. And I can't fathom.
And why are you burdening my squad if you believe that? Because you're just trying to take us down. I think I like Aaron Rodgers. I think if you have one of our 8 new general managers saying they want to sign they want to draft a generational player at number 1, I don't think Cam Ward is a generational player.
If that's what they're saying, then maybe they're discussing Travis Hunter at number 1 then. Which, okay, well, you could punt it down the line and still probably, unfortunately, end up with a top 5 pick next year in the running for another quarterback. After
are they not talking about Abdul Carter? I mean, I think there's probably 2 generational players in this draft, and that would be. Although, do you think Travis Hunter is the top corner in the draft?
I think Will Howard is the top corner in the draft.
Well,
Travis Hunter is the best football player in the draft.
Okay, but then how many? I mean, what are we doing here? Because he's going to the combine as a corner, right? So then, are we just saying 10 snaps on offense? Like, how much do you have to involve him in the offensive game plan to justify that number 1 overall pick if you don't even believe he's the best corner?
He would need 4 drives a game, in my opinion, to justify it. Let him go out there. If he caught 4 passes for 60 yards every game and was able to still play cornerback at the elite level, which I think he can do. He's one of these freaky Florida athletes that can just play football forever. And everyone's saying, oh, he just has to pick one. I don't think he does. I understand why people say that for longevity. The NFL hits are different than college, but he's also playing cornerback. It's a different. It's not. He's not Mel Blount where he's going to go running down, actually tackling people in clothesline fashion. He's Travis Hunter. He's going to be diving at ankles. It's a completely different game from the defensive back standpoint now. So I think his stamina will be able to hold up fine.
I think that if you draft Carter and you have Grind Simmons on that line still, and you're able to generate some turnovers, if you just have a less spurgy quarterback, you've heard me say this. I mean, you're talking about 13 touchdowns and 12, I think it's 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for Will Levis, and Mason Rudolph wasn't much better. Go look at fucking Rodgers' splits. Go look at his fucking stat line, especially down the stretch in the last 10 games. He took care of the football. I think if you sign one of those wide receivers, you're probably not going to get Godwin, probably not going to get fucking T. Higgins, but there's some guys out there that you could bring in that could potentially make a difference. Cooper Kupp's going to be available. I think you could cobble together a scenario where the Titans move up a couple of slots in the South if it's Rodgers. He was the quarterback that I put there as well. And then the final one, Tor, this is wild because you kind of have already answered this question. The Minnesota Vikings, I guess with McCarthy gone and your opinion of Daniel Jones, then it's the Sam Darnold show, correct?
Yes. If Sam Darnold, I would try to franchise tag Sam Darnold. I would try to do anything to keep him for another year to play it out. I know it's callous. I know it's cold, but he's had one good year in the NFL. He was fine in San Francisco, but this is the spot. And if I am an NFL GM seeing the trend of, am I going to pay big Tua money to Sam Darnold after 1 year? Irresponsible. That's irresponsible, but it's also irresponsible to let a guy that had so much success this past year just walk out the door for an unfinished product in JJ McCarthy and a dog shit product in Daniel Jones. So yeah, I would try hard to keep him, get him on a Baker deal, just get him in that second level. I don't think Sam Darnold is a dummy. I think he knows that if he goes somewhere else, it's all going to crash and burn. Stay in the offense where it all caters to you and your strong suits. And then maybe you get paid. Maybe you actually get a mega contract next year.
I think also he probably knows how much he benefits from being there. And Justin Jefferson's going to get 1,500 yards no matter what. And he's got all those weapons. It's like, what's the worst case scenario? I get another 6 games in that offense and they decide to go with JJ McCarthy. His reputation's already taken the speed bump. I think he's going to go out there and play good football. Do you have an open competition? Do you have a guy that's run the offense at a professional level, former first-round pick, competing against a kid that looks like he's 16 years old and McCarthy's got to go in there and beat him out? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, Anakin McCarthy can just since he's coming off of an injury, if he was healthy, if he was a healthy scratch this whole year, back up learning, open competition it up. He's coming off an injury. Let's just reset the rookie year. We're going to go through it all again. It's going to be maybe I tell him, yeah, if Sam starts struggling, then you got to be ready to go in. But throughout this, he had a great year last year. He had a couple bad games, but overwhelmingly, he was beating good teams, especially early on in the season. I would expect that to continue. It's so much drama to have an open quarterback competition in training camp, knowing that if guys in the locker room are favoring one quarterback that brought them success, brought them so many wins, they're going to want to stay with that because all the money's on the line for them to have a guy that can get them the ball, get them in the playoffs, get them more bonuses, get them more cash. I think if I'm a vet on that team, I'm vouching for Darnold hard compared to McCarthy, who, Superman athlete, sure, but super raw product as well.
I hear what you're saying, but they know they're good with anyone. Tor, they saw it with Kirk Cousins, they saw it with Sam Darnold. Maybe they're at a point where it's like we got to take a risk that this guy's got 5% more big playability, whatever it is you put the upper echelon of quarterbacks up. He still has a chance to reach there where Cousins doesn't have a chance to reach that. Darnold doesn't have a chance to reach that. Brock Purdy doesn't have a chance to reach that. Like whatever you think Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, whoever you want to put in there, maybe McCarthy has it. And I think these guys have done enough winning where that's probably a motivation for them.
I could see that if they're trying to play in division chess, like how are we going to really get past Detroit? How are we going to get past a healthy Green Bay and maybe a better Chicago this year? Like I can see them making that bet and saying this is our best chance to roll through the division is if we really strike it big with McCarthy. I can understand that. I think that with the diminished quarterback play, having a QB like Darnold that can just simply play quarterback, doesn't play outside of himself, outside of some bad picks, a couple arm punts this season. It seemed like he had good control of the offense, and that's all Minnesota needs. Just keep on drafting good players around him, and they could be a legitimate threat.
How dumb and cheap do the Bengals look? And I'm not even talking about Tor because they didn't sign Jamar Chase last year, but because the Philadelphia Eagles signed both their wide receivers and their quarterback and brought in the best running back in the league. And we're sitting here still quibbling about whether or not T. Higgins gets franchised. How did they not get Jamar Chase signed last year before we got another year of him being the best wide receiver in football? There is no defense for the way the Cincinnati Bengals go about their business.
It's an absolute embarrassment. And if they think that they can just replace T. Higgins with a man off the street or in the draft this year, they can't. If you want to draft McMillan out of Arizona, okay, maybe that's the closest comp because he's tall and rangy, but he's not T. Higgins. I saw T. Higgins the last couple of years has made plays that have made my jaw drop, where I said, wow, that dude is a player. And you're pairing him with a Jamar Chase. And I saw on Twitter yesterday, someone was making a Burrow comp to early Matt Ryan, where it was Julio Jones and Roddy White, and how that offense was flourishing with Burrow and Chase and Higgins. And it kind of made sense to me. Defense was awful, but a really potent offense. And if they can get things together, then they can win a bunch of games. But keeping those two weapons on the outside is very valuable. Who's the next man up for them? Andre Yoshivash? Not going to work. Is not going to do the numbers that T. Higgins does. And I think Burrow likes Higgins also. He's always looking to him. And when it's big play time and it's not a Jamar Chase slant taken to the house, he's going to Higgins down the sidelines. He's a security blanket and also athletic jump ball freak. You have to keep him. The Bengals are jackasses.
All right, so this story is 5 hours old. Commanders name potential landing spot for Chris Godwin. I read this morning that he's still discussing things with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would assume he's going to end up there. But if you're the Commanders tour and you've got the most cap space already and the cap just goes up, why not just go and do what it takes to get T. Higgins? Like, why not, if we put him on this team with Terry McLaurin, and I mean, they've got a couple of holes that they need to address, but it's not like there's a giant chasm between them and the class of the NFC. Far from it. I'm not settling. I'm whoever the best wide receiver is out there that can come in and help my team. That's who Washington should be targeting, because you have to strike while the iron's hot. I don't think you're overpaying for T. Higgins. I think some of these other guys, the Cavante Turpins, their own Diami Brown. I mean, these are all guys that are on the top 10 free agency wide receivers. Like, I don't want you to go out there and give DeAndre Hopkins $20 million a year, as much as I like him. I don't think you're overpaying for T. Higgins, because I agree with you. On any other, he's got the size, he's got the big game ability, the jump ball ability. On anybody else's team, he's probably a 1. That's the guy 1. I think that's the guy they should be targeting.
The Commanders should be targeting anybody that they think on the outside is an improvement over De'Ami Brown and Jamison Crowder and Luke McCaffrey. They should be absolute contenders in every bidding war for offensive talent and offensive line. Keep Jaden Daniels upright. Do what Philly did, and Howie Roseman explained that his success, he said it was easy. We just invested in the trenches. That's how we were able to go on the long run. That's how we were able to win the Super Bowl, was investing in the trenches. Get another target for Jaden Daniels. Keep the trenches sound. If that means drafting a depth piece, do it. Because the defense, I think Dan Quinn is a good enough defensive coach where you can just find some free agents on the cheap, make them good, make them serviceable. I don't think they need a lights out defense. I think they need an offense that can continuously go and compete with Philadelphia. You do that with a good offensive line and as much talent as you can surround Jaden Daniels with.
I said this with Sal's earlier, Tor. I think the Eagles have, as much as we thought the Rams were going to shift the paradigm with the fuck them picks. I think the Eagles going out there, paying everybody, and then also rushing 4 and making Pat Mahomes look like a boob for 60 minutes of the Super Bowl. It's easy to say rinse, wash, repeat. We'll just do what they did. Like, that's tough to do, but you're right. I mean, if you got 4 down linemen that can get after the quarterback, you can beat anybody in the league. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Montana back there in the pocket. 4 guys can get to him. It just frees up everything else for the defense. So I agree with you. Your buddy David Flaccoberry missed you. $5. Thank you, buddy. This is my favorite conversation dynamic. Thanks for coming by, Tor. Yeah, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. To be fair, Tor's got to work right now. I asked, hey, can you make a special exception and sneak on for half an hour? And you were amenable. I appreciate that.
Oh, I got so many details to put into a rundown right now. It's getting blown up with a bunch
what do you
of.
mean? Right now with your Joe job?
Oh yeah, but I'm taking my lunch break, David. So happy to join.
Good to have you here, and we'll be back. It's the off season. We're not very good during the season. The off season, that's our time to shine. This is a professional football podcast. All right, Tor, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Go do your job.
Of course, shoot.
The great radio's Gigantor, everybody, on both types of sports. It's not the same without him, of course. Thank you to him for stopping by. Thank you to Sean Salisbury for stopping by. Also, the Super Chatters coming to work today. Roland, Bobby Double L, Spider Clam, David Flaccoberry, Jason Marrow, Patrick McTeer. Thank you so much for financially supporting this show. Now you can support it with your metacarpal syndrome. Click like. Hit the like button. We've got no likes. There are people watching right now. And if you haven't, for God's sakes, go on over to iTunes. Go on over to Spotify, wherever you get your podcastery. It's right there at the bottom of the feed. Sign up. It is free. Listen to the show wherever you like on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you find your podcast. Greatly appreciate you guys checking out both types of sports. And we will be here the entire off season because we don't just talk about one type of sports, both the NFL and the NFL off season. Now, there was a long gap in between the last episode and this episode. So I think we took our outro phrase a little bit too literally, but I can promise you we won't be making that mistake again.
Hey, what do you got?
Both types of sports.
Yeah, what's it do? Go long. Real long.